Welcome to another episode of Stories of Awakening podcast. Today I have a special guest with me. Is my friend and also colleague Lilly Terry. She's an holistic health and mindset coach, and we actually met during a festival in Vegas last summer in 2022. Maybe we will have to do another episode just talking about that experience. But yeah, she's here to share her story of awakening and also share what she's bringing into this world and how she can help other people heal. So, Lily, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. I'm happy to
Yes,
talk.
very exciting. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I feel very lit up by the work that I'm doing these days and excited about the direction I'm going in and to be able to help people in a way that I wasn't planning on going down this route, let's just say. And we'll get more into what that is. But yeah, I'm just excited about the direction I'm going in and just very happy to be alive, happy to be here.
Yeah, amazing. So, tell us about your story. Start wherever, whenever you feel is the right point to start. Yeah, tell us your transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, where to start? Um, I just for a little bit of context, I grew up in Costa Rica. My family is European, but we moved to Costa Rica before I was even born, and then I lived there up until I graduated high school. I went to an American international school and then naturally went to college in the US and went through 4 years of fun and party and, not really taking care of my health, which resulted in a lot of health issues that I was starting to deal with that I'd never had before. So after I graduated college, I started to take back my health and really got passionate about nutrition. And I was just all in into the health and wellness space from the nutritional standpoint and decided that that's what I wanted to do with my life. And so I started to go down that route, got my certification as a health coach, and one thing led to another, and I was just consuming so many podcasts, so many books, and just talking to a lot of people in this space and starting to really open my perspective about the different modalities that were out there for healing, for transformation. And the more that I was implementing into my life, the better I was feeling. And so I was just
Mhm.
like, I couldn't get enough. I was like, give me all of the resources, all the tools, all the practices, all the superfoods, and just really, really loving that life. So I'd got into meditation. I had been doing some breath work, going to bed earlier, just working out, all of the lifestyle changes that were making me feel really alive and really passionate about this work, and starting to open my perspective as to like who I really was, because I had adopted a personality that I had realized came a lot from conditioning and trauma and just my overall life experiences like we all have. And I wasn't as happy with that person, that version of myself, that personality I
Mhm.
had adopted. And so this new world and how I was feeling and how I was starting to show up and take back my life was giving me breadcrumbs as to who I really was. And that was really intriguing to me. So that was kind of moving along slowly. And then my husband and I, Austin, decided to do a very intentional psychedelic journey together. At a Airbnb yurt, so kind of out in nature. We disconnected from our phones and kind of society, and just decided to do this very intentionally after doing a lot of research and hearing a lot about the benefits that psilocybin can have on the mind and the body and just perspective in general. And so we decided to go into this together and really make it a very intentional, sacred ceremony for ourselves. And that experience changed my life forever. It was so much more powerful than I could have ever anticipated. And it's one of those things that it's hard to describe if you haven't ever had a plant medicine journey like that. But even with just a really powerful breathwork ceremony or any sort of spiritual experience that is hard to put into words, but people have had different versions of it that they access through different modalities. But for me it was really plant medicines. And it's just like I feel like that my life, there was me before that experience, me after.
Mm-hmm.
And I was already headed in that direction, so I don't think that was a necessary part of my journey, but it was there for a reason. And it
Mm-hmm.
just opened my perspective to like, whoa, there's more to life than I ever thought. It gave me a much deeper connection to the universe, to source, to God, whatever word resonates with you, that I didn't have growing up. I didn't grow up in a religious household. I didn't have anything to like, I had no faith foundation. And so it really just changed my perspective on life and me and everything. And after that, I was even more committed to doing this work and to taking myself on a healing journey to then be able to facilitate that for other people. And that's what I've done over the past 5 years, just really primarily taking myself on the journey first and letting the universe show me like where I still have room to grow and heal and become and transform and learn and all the things. And now, over the past year or so, I've been bringing this more to my career and figuring out like what exactly my message is and how I can help people on their own journey to awaken and to heal and to grow into the people that I know they can be and they know they can be. So that's
Amazing.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's a journey and it takes time.
Yeah.
And when you start, you don't even know that you're starting that. You just want to feel better, and then it brings you completely in places that you could not even imagine. Is also your husband has a transformative experience with psychedelics, true? Is that
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we definitely didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that because we did it with with a really strong intention, and really respecting the plant, respecting the experience, I think that that's why it was so transformative for both of us. And it was really beautiful to do that with my partner, for the first time. Like both of us, it was our first time. And
Mm-hmm.
having that experience together with someone that you fully trust and are safe with and love is was just so powerful. It deepened our relationship in so many ways. And it's been, we've been on this journey together the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been really exciting and very unique as well. I'm really grateful for that experience with him.
Yeah, it's amazing. In my personal story and experience, psychedelic came quite late. So I would say in the last year or so. And I didn't know much about them before. I knew many of the spiritual community, people in the spiritual community were talking about it, and I was starting to doing some research. But they weren't part of my transformational journey, I think, until now. But I can confirm because I tried them as well. They're very, very transformative. And of course, if it's the first thing that you do, probably they're really gonna change your life. Many say, in fact, that you feel reborn. You are a new
Mhm.
person afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just powerful to, I think at the end of the day, everyone's journey is meant to look different because what you're here to
Hmm.
learn is completely different. And so life is going to bring opportunities to you at different times in your life. And psychedelics are definitely not for everyone. They're very potent and very intense. And,
Hmm.
with that comes a lot of risk as well. But I think this all comes back to trusting your own journey and the unfolding of your specific path. Like
Yeah.
to me, it's amazing that your transformation and your deep spiritual awakening happened completely sober. Like to me, that's amazing because I'm like, that is powerful.
Hmm.
And that was meant to be your journey. And so it's just, I always come back to really leaning into trust and acceptance for what is put on our path, and are we willing to accept and surrender to our unique journey without judging it or comparing it to someone else's.
Yeah, exactly. For everything, there is really no timeline as well. So for some people, it's very quick, the awakening. For all the healing process, for some other take longer, and we just
Mhm.
need to trust and accept how it's happening for us. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing this. And out of curiosity, because definitely this is a big part of the work that I do and part of my story too, telling this transformation and what I was thinking, even without psychedelics, to my family or the people they knew me before. Um, how was that for you? Was it difficult or people accepted it easily? They understood what you were going through? How was it for you?
It definitely wasn't easy and it definitely took time. And I think that those are two things that, are important to mention because I look at my life now and my family knows exactly who I am and what I do and that I intentionally use psychedelics every once in a while and whatnot and my friends are on the same page. But like when I first was on that journey, it was just me and Austin and I kind of went inward, which happens for a lot of people when you first
Yeah.
go through a journey like this. It's like you kind of have to go into your own little cocoon before you come out as a butterfly. And
Hmm.
for me, that process was like 2 years long I mean, I still had friends, but I wasn't fully open about who I had become and who I was becoming.
Hmm.
Um, so for me, I feel really grateful that I had a partner who I could share everything with and who knew exactly who I was and what I was going through because I feel like it can be really hard if it's just you, although still possible. But I was grateful to have him alongside me. But for, I would say, probably 2 years, I was not fully honest about who I was being with the people who I didn't think would understand. And I think that that's a totally okay process to go through because you're going through so much and changing so much that it's hard to even describe your like it's hard to even understand who you are in that moment, let alone explain it to someone who might not understand and might cast judgment on you from their own fears and projections, which like you almost have to create like a barrier and like a protective layer around you to go through this really sensitive and very rapidly changing process and evolution. And so, yeah, it definitely, I think the most important thing to remember is just have patience and like keep doing you. And you don't have to share everything with everyone right away.
Hmm.
That doesn't make you a bad person or whatever. It's a sacred journey and it's meant to be yours at first before you are ready to open up and share it with the world and even your family. And yeah, eventually, like one step at a time, I became more confident, more like, this is who I am, that knowing. And so
Hmm.
from that place, I was able to share in a way that wasn't like, oh, I did, like, I wasn't coming to it with self judgment. And so other people weren't going to judge me either.
Hmm.
However, as this process naturally does, it's like some people fall out of your life and people that
Hmm.
aren't in alignment anymore. So at first, it can feel like you're so alone, like you've lost friends, and like now you're like behind. But it's only the universe creating space for you to then have the space to attract people that are more in alignment to you into your field. And so it's all a natural process. But yeah, it was definitely a period of being uncomfortable, feeling alone, feeling isolated, but self-created. It's like I
Hmm.
wanted to be alone because
Yeah.
there was so much happening within me. I was like, I just want to experience whatever this is. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
patience.
Yeah, absolutely. I resonate with what you say. Even when I started meditation, I was feeling weird talking about it. But I felt so many benefits that I wanted to share it, but more on the mental health point of view. So you sleep better, you feel less stressed, you're more relaxed. So it was easy in that sense, explaining to people. When I started Reiki, that became a bit more difficult to explain. And I think after Reiki, I stopped explaining to people and I retreat. And as well, I went into my own journey. And I would say the fastest growth, yeah, was during the pandemic. It was facilitated, of course, for the fact that we were all locked in, and so had a lot of time to read and go really deep in my self discovery and journey. And I felt completely different even after the second lockdown. I was in UK, but yeah, I couldn't probably explain what was happening, and my journey was different in a sense that I had a partner at the time, and this is also very common. I think your story is amazing with Austin, which I also know, and I love you guys, you know it. Um, but yeah, often happens that if you start this process and you are with someone that is
Mhm.
not willing or is not his timing to grow together with you, also that it will not work out. And I think we need to normalize this. We need to normalize that relationships sometimes don't last forever, and doesn't mean that it's a failure. Friendship don't last forever, and it's not a failure either. We grow and evolve, and as we grow and evolve, also the people around us like will change, and it's
Mhm.
something that from my culture in Italy is very hard to understand, because especially where I'm from, everyone knows each other. They have been friends since they were kids, so there is really little change. I feel, but it's something that I really needed to learn in order to build a life that is more aligned with who I truly am. I don't want to lie, it was definitely one of the most difficult part of this journey, but because you have the tool, you can face
Mhm.
everything. Yeah.
How did you start sharing more then? I'm interested. Like how did you after the pandemic or in the pandemic start to express more about who you had become and what life you were living?
hmm So it happened mainly with work. I got into manifestation, and one of the things that I was manifesting was actually well-being in my office, because I know there were a lot of people after 1 year working from home really struggling, and the company was searching for someone that, or some ideas to make people feel better in their everyday activity. And with all the work that I did in the past year and even the years before, I had many ideas. So this is how I started to share what I knew. Of course, in an office in finance in London, I didn't talk about energy or manifestation, but I was talking more about meditation, gratitude, breath work, cold showers and things like that. But it was a beginning, like it was a start of sharing the information that I had, and it was so good for me. I felt so fulfilled that those few months that I led that program made me realize that actually that is what I wanted to do for a living. Yeah. So that's how I started. And then when I quit my job, I started to share more on social media, and that was the hardest thing ever. But the more I was doing it, the more comfortable I was becoming, even sharing the more spiritual things. Some stuff I still haven't shared, but yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially I think in my case, my family wasn't really understanding things. It wasn't bored with meditation and Reiki, but everything else, it was very difficult to understand. Even my change of career was very difficult to understand, and I think that made it more difficult for me to share, because I felt not accepted from them.
Mhm.
But yeah, is getting better. Definitely, they understood that what I
Good.
do, I really believe in. Yeah, in what I
Yeah.
do. Hmm
Well, again, it's like patience, and the more you go on the path, the more you start to believe in yourself, the more you start to gain confidence, and then it's like the world around you just starts to shift and reflect that feeling you have within you. And so it takes
Hmm.
time for sure for the world to adapt, but like you're adapting too. And so it's all just moving along exactly the way it's supposed to. And we just have to
Yeah,
continue. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And I felt the family for me was my biggest block. And in some
Mm-hmm.
sense, it still is. I think it's a long journey for me. But once you overcome that, you really can overcome any fear of being seen, judged, and everything else. Because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was my biggest fear, probably being judged and not accepted by my family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you started with actually nutrition, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you want to talk a bit more about that and how your work is different now, what you discovered in this journey, and what you teach people now, basically?
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey for me because life has taken me, I mean, as it does, I think for everyone, but it took me on this journey. And then as I was going through it, I was also trying to build a business around it. And that's been the most difficult part for me because it's forced me to look at a lot of conditioned behavior, I would say, of like perfectionist tendencies and overthinking and just wanting to have clarity before I ever put anything out there. And so that's been a whole journey in and of itself. But in terms of like my message and what I do, yeah, like I said, my journey really started with physical health. And so nutrition was like, I loved it. All I wanted to do was learn about the foods that you're meant to eat for your biology, really. And so I spent a lot of years going really, really deep into that world and learning a lot. Um, and experimenting a lot on myself too. And I loved it. And I was helping people with primarily nutrition and a little bit of like lifestyle changes and whatnot, and seeing some good results. But then my journey kind of flipped again, and I actually ended up gaining a lot of symptoms back, not doing well with my health again. And I couldn't understand why, because on paper, I was doing all the right things, that I had learned. And I was doing as much as I possibly could in the realm of the physical, and my symptoms were getting worse. I was feeling really tired. I had gained weight, and I was just like so frustrated with myself. And eventually it took me down a path of like getting to a breaking point where I was forced to look elsewhere for answers, which happened to be my mindset, really, and my
Mhm.
emotional well-being too. But for me, it was primarily my mind, like realizing how my mind was getting in the way of my own well-being and my happiness and my health. um, and so for the past year and a half, I have just been diving into that world, like realizing how powerful our thoughts and beliefs are and how much control they have over our body's response. And it has opened this whole new world for me that I feel really passionate to share, because I don't think it's a conversation that is being had enough, especially on social media and the health and wellness space. Um, that space has become very dogmatic, very overly focused on the physical. And what I've noticed through my journey and working with clients and just what I've seen on social media is that, especially with women who are already operating from these deeper subconscious beliefs of not being worthy, not being good enough, having to prove themselves, their weight being a dictator of how worthy and how loved they can be, like all of these deeper stories that we carry in our subconscious. When you add this layer of like, oh, it's your fault if you are overweight, it's your fault if you're not healthy, like you're not doing this enough, you're not eating the right foods, you're not working, like it's when we add that discussion onto an already um like a mind that's already kind of working against itself, it adds so much stress to our beings. And your body does not heal when you are in a chronic state of stress. And that's
Mhm.
ultimately the message that I had to learn the hard way on my journey, that I am now so committed to sharing with everyone I can, because health is not something you should have to chase after and like discipline your way into. And God forbid you miss a workout or you eat a piece of cake or something. Like it's just become so rigid and so fear based. And my message now is, can we look at the underlying reasons of why you are doing what you're doing? Because I don't think it's as much about what you're doing. I think it's about why you're doing it. You know, the intention, the energy behind it that's like ruling your behaviors. And so instead of trying to change your behaviors and your diet and your circumstances, can we look a couple layers beneath that and see what happened in
Mhm.
childhood? What are your subconscious beliefs about yourself? What are the stories that are running rampant in your mind that are causing you to act in the physical the way that you are, that's getting you the results that you're getting? Why is the body so stressed out? And usually it's because of the mind and the way that we're perceiving ourselves and life. And so that is now the field that I am starting to uncover, and I'm still so new to it, because I think there's so much there to learn. But that's the work that I'm stepping into now, and I am currently creating a program, like a group coaching program that will be released next month, that I'm really excited about. That is all about this, really. It's shifting the approach that we take to wellness, which is not just physical health, but mental,
Mhm.
emotional, and spiritual as well.
Mhm.
Because if we really, like, if you think about it, the reason why people are fascinated with health isn't just because of the way that you want to look. Like it's not just for the outcomes. It's always the feelings that are associated with what the outcomes we think are going to bring
Yeah.
us. And so it's like, can we flip that around, tap into the feeling first of confidence and self-love and abundance and all of these feelings that we want, and then the physical actually just comes as a natural byproduct of the internal state of being. And so that is the conversation that I am here to bring. And it's not easy because it's not as flashy and like quick fix as like this 30-day weight loss program that they're selling on the internet. But I know the truth,
Yeah.
and I know which one is going to make more of an impact, and I think the world really needs it. So yeah, I'm excited to keep sharing my story and keep helping people down that road, because it's the most powerful thing you could partake in, I think.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks so much for what you do. And yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with everything you said, and especially about not just the health, but everything else. You want to have that house, get married, have kids. Most of the time, people want these things for the feeling that they think they will have once they achieve these things. And that's actually the core point also. Manifestation is
Yep.
actually work on yourself and start to feeling these things inside, and then the external environment will change and you will get these things. But you can have these feelings of peace and fulfillment regardless the environment around you. That was the most
Yeah.
powerful thing that I learned as well. And yeah, you can apply it for physical health and anything else, honestly. And
Mhm.
you said also a very important thing, which also I believe is the base, is the reason why many people don't get what they want in life. It can be again health or money or a partner, is really this feeling of not being good enough or not worthy of these things. So once you realize that and you work on changing these beliefs, everything will really shift for you. I think, yeah, that was
Yeah.
very powerful to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the I I really think, oh wow, it's snowing.
Oh, it's
I really
beautiful.
think it's, that at the very, very core of so many of our struggles, especially as women, is a deep, deep lack of self-worth. Like I
Mhm.
really, really think that when you keep boiling it down, it a lot of times it comes to that. And that's, That's why we want to climb the financial ladder and the corporate ladder and prove ourselves, prove our worth, or get super healthy and super fit so we can prove how worthy we are, or find the partner and start the family and do the things like all of these. I'm not saying that it's bad to want those, but it's again, it's coming from the intention. Like, where is that coming from? Because what I've noticed is that if your actions are coming from a lack of self worth and you trying to override that, it's never going to feel like it's enough because
Mm-hmm.
you're operating from a lie. The fact that
Mm-hmm.
you are not worthy unless you have X, Y, and Z, that is a conversation. And it's never going to, the goalpost is just going to keep moving. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's so frustrating and so exhausting because no matter how hard you try, the mind is still operating from an illusion. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's never going to feel satisfied. And so instead of reaching burnout and getting to a breaking point, like I know we both have in our own ways, my goal now is to prevent that and shift that conversation before it gets that bad so that you can actually access that creative energy where you're not reacting to the life you don't want, but you're creating the one that you know you're capable of because you know you are worthy. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
can you go to the gym not because you think you're fat or you hate your body or whatever it is, but because you know you are worthy enough of that self care? And that's a completely different energy, and
Yeah.
so and that doesn't stress your body out, and it doesn't feed this story of like you're not good enough. And so yeah, it's the most powerful conversation to have, and remembering your worth and remembering that not being worthy is just a conversation. And it's hard because there's a lot of stories attached to it and generational trauma and so much to uncover, but it's still just a story. Like you weren't born not good enough. You just adopted that as a thought, as a
Mm-hmm.
belief, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah. And if you feel like that, is because you're here to heal that. You are here
Mm-hmm.
to heal that belief for yourself, for your ancestors, and everyone that couldn't do it before you, and also for future generations. This is what I really believe we are here for. And that's why we are carrying all these limiting beliefs and, emotions that are stored in our DNA is really to heal and actually create a new world where
Mm-hmm.
people and kids don't have to feel these things anymore. And yeah, as you said, often these beliefs are not even created during our childhood. Most of them are, I guess, but some really are passed down from generation to generation. There is this science that I always like to mention, epigenetics, because I really love it. And yeah, they say negative emotions, traumas, limiting beliefs are passed down through the DNA for at least they say 14 generations or more. So yeah, it's definitely something that the person that realized these things, I'm sure, is meant to heal it for his own
Mm-hmm.
lineage and for the future generation too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to mention too. You know, no one really knows where these beliefs or conditioned thoughts come from, but
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I mean, with the study of epigenetics and everything else that we're starting to learn about energy and how it's passed down, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And it's beautiful and challenging at the same time to be in a position where you are committed to breaking the pattern, that has been going on and passed on
Mm-hmm.
for so many generations. Like even just a family tradition or something like that has been passed on from one person to the other to the other to the next. And so to be in a position now where we aren't doing just this healing work for ourselves, but for past generations and future, so that we don't continue to pass on trauma unconsciously. It's
Mm-hmm.
not obviously it's no one, there's no one to blame. It's all people are always doing the best they can within the level of their awareness, but it's a it it makes this a lot more meaningful, I think, when you zoom out and you realize that this is a lot bigger than just you. And it also helps to get through some of the really challenging moments where you're just like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
this is really
Abs-
hard.
yeah. Absolutely. In fact, this is one of the main things that I want to share with people, getting well, feeling better is really not just for yourself. You have a ripple effect on all the people around you. And if you want to change the world, you want to make it better, the best thing you can do is really take care of yourself and actually overcome all these limiting beliefs, negative emotion, fears, whatever they are. And that's the most powerful thing you can do, as they are
Mhm.
stored in our subconscious, and we have our individual subconscious that is part of the collective subconscious as well. So as we heal and integrate this part of us, we heal really the collective as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people ask, how can I inspire my partner or my family or my friends or whatever to do this work too? And, it's probably the answer no one wants to hear, but it's at the end of the day, just focus on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing you actually have control over. The way that we have been taught to move through life is to try to control and change and manipulate our circumstances and other people, and it's not working. It's not
No.
working because everyone is on their own journey and they aren't going to learn it unless they go through it themselves. And so you have to inspire the change by being the change. As cliche as it is, like, that is true. And it's it's also really beautiful because it shows you how powerful your energy can be, and like, you just being you inspires someone else to want to do the work because they see the good in you, they see the transformation in you. And like, that's the most powerful way to ever evoke change in others. And yeah, it's exciting and it's liberating in many ways, because like, oh, I don't actually have to change anything around me, I can
Mm-hmm.
just focus on me, and that will
Exactly.
naturally change everything else around me.
Yeah.
Is Yeah, that's the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you one more thing, which
Mhm.
as well I'm very passionate about. One of my deepest wounds is definitely around relationship, romantic relationship especially. And when I met you and Austin in Vegas, I told you thousands of times, I really realized that conscious relationships are real. You can actually have them, and they can push you forward, they can help you grow, and you can have a happy life together. And is definitely not something that I grew up with, and that's why I had also a lot of issues with relationship myself. But would you like to share a little bit about maybe your story or what you think a conscious relationship is? And I'm sure this will be
Mhm.
part of my work one day when I can prove to others as well. I am the proof one day that this can happen too.
Yes, absolutely. It can. And yeah, I would love to talk about it. So I also didn't grow up with any healthy understanding of what a conscious relationship was. My parents got divorced when I was 6 or 7 years old, and it was a very difficult experience for me. And so I mostly grew up with a single mom, and I didn't have that like paternal figure in the house as much. But I love both my parents, and they did a great job in me, like, helping me become the person I am. But when it comes to relationships, I didn't have an example really. So I created it. I feel like with Austin and my relationship, it's been something that we have created by being committed to this path of growth and healing. And part of it is just my luck, my destiny, if you want to call it, of like meeting
Mhm.
him at an early age and us going on this journey together. Like, that's not something that I'm like, oh, I was sitting there manifesting it. No, that just happened. And, I'm lucky for that. However, I think a lot of people look at a relationship where it is today and they're like, oh, you're so lucky, like, you just got so
Mhm.
lucky you found this partner. But they don't see the 10 years of work that we've put into our relationship. And again, this is so interesting because this comes back to what we just talked about, where it's really about you. And I think the most beautiful thing about a conscious relationship is that it's two strong individual people doing their own healing work
Mm-hmm.
and bringing the relationship together that way. Because what you see in unconscious relationships is not two people relating to the other. What they're doing is relating to their own projection of the other person. So
Yeah.
it's two egos in trying to relate, and what egos want is to be right about
Mm-hmm.
themselves and their own limitations. And so you're always trying to put the other person down to make sure that you are right. And that's not a relationship. You
Mm-hmm.
know, relationships are so much about trying to understand the other person's experience. But in order to fully put down your walls so that you can be present with another person's experience and hold them through that and reflect the good and the bad back to them, you have to work through your own shit. Really,
Mm-hmm.
you have to put down your walls. You have to be able to heal your own stories and put down your defense mechanisms so that you can actually be available for a like a relationship that's going to evoke healing. And you know, relationships are probably the hardest thing because there's nowhere to hide. There's
Mm-hmm.
there you know, like it's like you're fully exposed and you're there, and all of your insecurities are going to come out, and all of your shadows and all of it. And it's really beautiful to be held by another person who understands this work and can see that and reflect back to you when you are, you know, not being the person that you know you are, or coming from a hurt, scared place, but without judgment. And so obviously there's so many directions that I can keep talking about, but I
Yeah.
think the point that I just want to reinforce is that you don't have to go out there and like find the partner. That's not going to
Mhm.
work, because that's not how manifestation works, not how energy works. So, and that's exhausting too. If you're always like, oh, I need to go find it, that is coming from a place of like, I need this because I, as myself, am not enough, or because society has told me that I need this. But I think that the most powerful thing that you can do, like if I had to start this whole journey over without a partner, what I think about what I would do is, again, focus on my experience, focus on healing my wounds, my conditioning, my trauma, whatever stories are getting in the way of me not being safe and comfortable and whole and complete just as I am. Because that's actually what allows the space for someone to come into your space and match you energetically. And
Mhm.
that might not be the answer people want to hear, but it's truly what I think makes the difference, for conscious relationships. But they are out there, and it is possible, and it's a really beautiful thing, and also very very challenging. Like both
Yeah.
and that's why it's worth it, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing your story. I find it amazing. And you really gave me hope that it was possible for me too when I saw you
Yeah.
guys. And
Oh,
yeah, it was really great. And in my journey, I realized that you need to become the person you want to be with, like you want to date.
yes.
Yeah. So it's basically you becoming the person that you want to attract. And
Mm-hmm.
another important thing, I guess, was really be radically authentic, really no playing games. There is no time for that. Really be who you are fully
Mm-hmm.
and let the other person see you as you are
Mm-hmm.
with your, shadows and your light. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't be afraid. For some reason this was just coming through, but like not being afraid to just put yourself out there and to experience and to meet people. And you know, I think especially as we go down this path of healing and spirituality and whatnot, it feels very serious sometimes, like, oh, we like the
Mm.
next person that I date like has to be the person or whatever. And I think that that kind of neglects the more human side of the experience of like having fun, and to also trusting that like whoever you're meant to meet is for a reason. And like you
Yeah.
said at the beginning, even if that person isn't meant to be your soulmate and your life partner forever, they are here to teach you something. So, not closing off your walls to people who might just be a character in your story and not, the main character. I think that that's really important too, because everyone is here to teach us something. And yeah, it's like I think we close people off and experiences too when we think that it has to be one way and we have this expectation. Um, so yeah, that's just something that was coming through that I wanted to share.
No, thank you so much. No, exactly. I totally agree. And yeah, another thing that I learned, even looking at you guys, was freedom. You were free to do whatever you wanted at the festival. You were talking with other people, you were having your own experience. You need to keep your own independence, and still have an experience together. But yeah, this is something, for
Yeah.
example, that I did wrong in the past. And for the way I grew up, yeah, it was, always together, do everything together, and no
Mm.
giving that space and freedom to the other person
Yeah.
to grow. And
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
Freedom is what we all want, right? As
Mhm.
human beings. And the moment you're in a relationship and you feel energetically like you don't have freedom, that's exactly what your ego is going to want. And so you're going to run away and you're going to resent and you're going to do all the things. And so it's it's interesting because as always it comes back to you and
Mhm.
you have to ask yourself, why am I so afraid to let this person be free?
Mhm.
And that comes back, like what I noticed in my relationship, and Austin and I are working on this, still like a lot, to this day, on fully trusting the other person to have their experience and trust that our relationship is strong enough to withhold that. But it comes down to your own lack of self-trust, your own lack
Mhm.
of self-confidence. Because if
Yeah.
think of it as like a toy, you're too afraid to share the toy because you're scared to lose it. Because there's a part of you that feels like if you don't have that, then you break, you're gone, you're not whole. And that's the story to work on, not on forcing yourself to let go, because that's not going to work. You can pretend like you are letting them be free, but on the inside you're going crazy thinking about it and like worried about it. And so this work, it's always us. We're projecting, we're putting things out there based on what we believe. And so this work, like at the beginning, I was very much like that too. I was so afraid of losing him. I was so afraid of, letting him go and do his thing. But as I have done this work on myself and he's done it on himself, it's like we trust ourselves, we trust our relationship, and we trust the plan, the universal
Mm.
plan for our lives that we actually
Yeah.
don't have control over. So it's really beautiful. I heard a quote, I forget exactly what it said, but it was something around the lines of like, how beautiful is it to give someone complete freedom and still watch them choose you?
Oh
You know,
yeah, absolutely.
like
Yeah.
that's what we want. We want them to choose us, not because they have to or because we're making them,
Exactly.
but because they are allowed to do whatever they want and they still choose you. Like that
Yeah,
is really powerful. And so
exactly.
that's what we're working towards. And we're not perfect at it for sure, but
No.
it's small everyday progress, and it again starts with you always.
Yeah. And you live so much better like that. It's just so
Yeah.
much stress released that you don't have to
Mhm.
control anything if you really trust that there is a plan for
Mhm.
everything. And just connecting to what we were saying at the beginning, the success of the relationship is not the length, and it doesn't mean that people there leave you or is a failure for you and for the other person. I mean, is really, I think, relationship, especially romantic relationships, all of them, but I believe especially romantic one, are really the most powerful mirrors and the one that push you to do the deepest work on yourself. So even if they don't work out, if you take them with the right mindset, you will really transform thanks to them. And I can really
Mhm.
say, for my experience, the most transformative things happen because my relationships didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's asking yourself, what did I learn from this? I think that transforms your perspective on it. Because it's, again, you're approaching it like, did this work? What does that mean? Like, according to who? According to what societal constructs? Like, oh,
Mhm.
because we didn't get married and we didn't end up together forever. Okay, but did it work in teaching you what you needed to learn?
Exactly.
And that's life too. It's like, oh, a job didn't work because I'm not in it forever, or did it just get you to the next place and teach you something that you were meant to learn? That's what life is. Like, it's all about what we're learning and who we're becoming in the process. And if we can view all of our experiences through that lens, I think we can let go of some of the judgment and the criticism that we have about how we do things wrong, or whatever. It's like, no, it's all here for you, and like, it's your journey for a reason.
Yeah, well said, Lily. I couldn't have said it better. Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Oh, well, thank you so much for all that you have shared with us. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Um, if not, where people can find you. You have a podcast as well. So, yeah, if you want to
Yeah.
share a little bit of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I really enjoyed this conversation. I always enjoy talking to you. There's so much depth that we can go into. I feel like we could just keep talking forever, but
Absolutely.
but yeah, in terms of where people can connect with me, I mean, like you said, my podcast, that's been such a big passion project of mine. I clearly love to talk. And so it's called Home to Self. And the best place to connect with me other than that is on Instagram, which is just Lilly M Terry. So LILLYMTERRY. And yeah, just to be on the lookout for everything that's coming. Everything that I just talked about is being created or turned into a physical offering, a group program that I'm really excited to hold a container for women to kind of uncover this process together and take back ownership over their wellness in a way that isn't talked about. And so I'm really excited, and I'm happy to connect with your audience.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see what you create, and thank you so much for what you do, and thanks for this chat. I'll speak to
Thank
you
you
soon.
too. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.